The story of Samson is a captivating narrative found in the biblical book of Judges, chapters 13 to 16. Samson is depicted as a Nazirite, a person consecrated to God from birth, with specific vows including not cutting his hair, abstaining from alcohol, and avoiding contact with corpses. His incredible strength, which was said to be God-given, is one of the central themes of his story. Samson's birth was foretold by an angel to his parents, who were childless at the time. The angel instructed them that their son was to be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. As Samson grew, his strength became apparent. He famously slew a lion with his bare hands and later used the jawbone of a donkey to defeat 1,000 Philistines. However, Samson's story is not just about physical strength. It's also about his weaknesses. He had a weakness for women, particularly Philistine women, which led to his downfall. One of the most famous episodes involves his relationship with Delilah, who was bribed by the Philistine leaders to discover the secret of Samson's strength. After much persuasion, Samson finally revealed that his strength came from his uncut hair. While Samson slept, Delilah cut his hair and he lost his strength. The Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and imprisoned him. In a final act of strength and faith, Samson prayed to God for his strength to return one last time. In the temple of the Philistine god Dagon, where he was brought to entertain the Philistine leaders, Samson pushed apart the pillars supporting the temple, causing it to collapse, killing himself and thousands of Philistines. In the ancient land of Israel, during a time when the people were ruled by judges, there lived a man named Manoah, from the tribe of Dan, and his wife, who was barren and childless. One day, an angel of the Lord appeared to her and declared, "You are barren and childless, but you will conceive and give birth to a son. Be sure not to drink wine or any other fermented drink. And do not eat anything unclean, for you will conceive and give birth to a son. No razor may be used on his head, because the boy is to be a Nazirite, set apart to God from birth. And he will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines." Manoah's wife ran to tell her husband of the angel's visit and the promise of a son. Overjoyed, Manoah prayed to the Lord, asking for the angel to return and instruct them on how to raise the child. God listened to their prayer, and the angel appeared again to Manoah's wife while she was in the field. She quickly ran to fetch her husband, and together they listened as the angel reiterated the instructions regarding the child's upbringing. Months passed, and as the angel had foretold, Manoah's wife gave birth to a son. They named him Samson. From his birth, Samson was different. His hair grew long and thick, and he was filled with the Spirit of the Lord. As Samson grew, the Spirit of the Lord began to move him in extraordinary ways. Once, while traveling to the town of Timnah, he was attacked by a lion. With the strength given to him by God, Samson tore the lion apart as easily as one would tear a young goat. But he did not tell his parents what he had done. As Samson matured into a man, he became fascinated by the Philistine women, despite the warnings of his parents against intermarrying with them. One day, he insisted on marrying a Philistine woman from Timnah, much to the dismay of his parents. As Samson and his parents journeyed to Timnah for the wedding, a young lion attacked him once again. But once again, Samson was filled with the strength of the Lord, and he killed the lion with his bare hands, though he did not reveal this to his parents. At the wedding feast, Samson posed a riddle to the Philistine guests, promising 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes if they could solve it within 7 days. The riddle was, out of the eater, something to eat; out of the strong, something sweet. Unable to solve the riddle, the Philistine guests pressured Samson's new wife to obtain the answer from him. With tears and pleading, she eventually persuaded Samson to reveal the answer, which he had learned from the lion he had killed on his way to Timnah. Filled with rage at being tricked, Samson left the wedding feast and returned home. Later, when he returned to Timnah to consummate his marriage, he discovered that his wife had been given to another man. Enraged, Samson caught 300 foxes, tied them tail to tail, and set them loose in the Philistines' fields, destroying their crops and vineyards. In retaliation, the Philistines burned Samson's wife and her father to death. Enraged even further, Samson struck down many Philistines with great vengeance. The Philistines, in turn, sought revenge on Samson and his people, leading the men of Judah to bind Samson and deliver him to the Philistines to avoid further conflict. As they approached him, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he broke the ropes that bound him as easily as if they were burnt flax. Samson then found the jawbone of a donkey and used it to strike down 1,000 Philistines. After this victory, Samson judged Israel for 20 years during a time of relative peace. But his weaknesses still haunted him. He continued to be drawn to Philistine women, including a woman named Delilah, who caught the attention of the Philistine rulers. The rulers approached Delilah and promised her a great reward if she could discover the secret of Samson's strength. Delilah agreed and began to entice Samson, asking him to reveal the source of his strength. 3 times Samson deceived her, but each time she pressed him, claiming that he did not truly love her if he did not confide in her. Finally, worn down by her persistent questioning, Samson revealed the truth. His strength came from his uncut hair, a symbol of his Nazirite vow. Delilah wasted no time in betraying him. While he slept, she summoned a Philistine barber who shaved off his hair. When Samson awoke, he found himself weak and vulnerable. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and bound him with bronze shackles. They then brought him to Gaza, where they forced him to grind grain in the prison. Over time, Samson's hair began to grow back, and with it, his strength returned. The Philistines, unaware of this, gathered to celebrate their victory over Samson and their god, Dagon, in a great festival held in the temple of Dagon. Samson, now blind and weakened, was brought out to entertain the Philistines. As he stood between the 2 central pillars of the temple, he prayed to God for strength one last time. With a mighty cry, he pushed against the pillars and the temple collapsed, killing Samson and all those inside, including the rulers of the Philistines. In his death, Samson killed more of his enemies than he had in his lifetime. Thus, the deliverer of Israel fulfilled his destiny, bringing judgment upon the enemies of God's people even in his death. The story of Samson serves as a reminder of the power of God to work through flawed individuals to accomplish his purposes and the consequences of straying from his commandments. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. I hope you like this video. Thank you.